この家自体は150年前に一番最初作られたんですけども、私の家は460年続いています。
Machiya are the secret which Kyoto has never tried to hide. Remarkably, these traditional houses built back early as the 9th century Heian period remain somewhere floating below greater public awareness, almost inexplicably given their position at the center of Kyoto's cultural and historical life. Perhaps it's how they line the streets so modestly, their beauty a kind more often silently appreciated rather than loudly obvious. Terms like eel bedding and Koshi, lattice work, hint at a distinctive design born not only of aesthetic taste, but of necessity as well. How then does this aesthetic find its way in the modern day? Gladly, those who have not forgotten its importance are finding new methods to carry the tradition forward. To do so is no doubt difficult, but struggle and discipline have always been close friends to innovation, and so it is as well with preventing the Machiya from disappearing. When entropy is the norm, so rarely is it that architecture remains which is able, through its doors, to invite us backwards through time, to tell a story of not only where it came from, but why. Kyoto stands out as a beautiful city among many beautiful cities that you can find when you're traveling around Japan. And I think this is achieved largely by the beautiful, unique cityscape that they have there. And it's a result of the Machiya. And the Machiya are these types of traditional buildings that you can find in abundance in Kyoto, which doubled at one point historically as both residence and business. Now, the recent trend is that these are falling out of vogue, are less popular with the local population. And if that trend isn't reversed in the next 50 years or so, then this unique element to the city's cultural history is going to disappear slowly. Now, say what you will about progress. I'm not against new structures going up, but you'd have to admit that if these Machiya were gone, there would be something truly, truly culturally relevant to the city and the way that you experience it, which would have disappeared. And that's why I'm happy, excited, and was relieved to hear that there are a number of people that are trying to revitalize the Machiya in a whole bunch of different creative ways, and I was invited down to take a tour of how they're doing so. True appreciation is always born of knowing something more intimately. That is to say, much like an artist would appreciate a fellow craftsman's skill given their own knowledge on the topic, the best way to acquaint yourself with Machiya is to first explore the many unrenovated properties that exist around Kyoto. To know how originally they were designed with such care is to understand why they have such value for renewal.
As you can see, the front, the natural woods coming through on most of the materials here, but also even the pigment that's used, where you see that pink color, a little bit of a pinkish red. That's a traditional pigment that's used called bengara. So you can see some of the original elements really still shining through. Another really key point to note is it's a very wide Machiya, and because Machiya were traditionally taxed based on how much storefront was facing the street, that's what led to the bed of eels design, which is the sort of very long and narrow space design, space layout. This one's very, very wide, so it's probably two plus regular Machiya's width facing the street.
This place is huge. That's the defining characteristic, and when you walk in, you notice it immediately. We're gonna take you guys to see every which part of it, but one of the coolest things is in the kitchen. What's the name of the kitchen, Drew?
Daidokoro.
Daidokoro, that's right. And the kitchen is unique because this was built before any sort of modern science was going to take care of any sort of fumes that you had coming out of your house. And so what they did is similar to as though you were in a teepee. It's that you have this huge space above you that when people are cooking, all the smoke releases and goes upwards and out of the house, and then doesn't, hopefully as much as it can, given this kind of like basic design, pollute the house with any other smoke while everybody's cooking. And as a result of that, you get all this kind of cool light play as a result of the skylights letting in and having light cast over all these beams, so you get shadows cast around the house. And you can imagine as it hit golden hour, as it hit those different parts of the day, that you're gonna get some really, really cool dynamic looking scenes. I I was thinking even of these Buddha here, as you would see the shadows pass across them. Spacious again up here. And lots of light. I think that's what keeps these feeling kind of human. And I was talking about downstairs, how we have access to the view of the garden, and then again here you have an enclosed veranda, I suppose you could say, where you're again able to access that view of the garden. And even more beautiful carving. And Drew had pointed out downstairs as well that where you see this slight angle to the wood, it's all purposed design. Very little of what you're seeing here is by accident, and kind of lends more to the whole story of the building and whoever had crafted it. And perhaps something that if people were to renovate these structures, that they're considering when they renew it, because how much are you retaining of the old structure that adds that personality and might be lost once you go changing too many things.
So a lot of Machiya, especially a Machiya of this size, would probably have been built by a fairly wealthy merchant family, and as such they needed to conduct their business from their home. So some Machiya had sort of a production center in the back of the property, with like a small factory where they'd produce their goods, and others would have store spaces facing the street in the front. But in traditional business, you have to meet face to face with all of your customers and clients, people from the community. So you need to welcome them into your Machiya, and to do that, you'd use your zashiki, which is where we are in the second story right now. This is sort of the highest status room in the house, and this is where you'd welcome important guests. Now, because of that, you want to make the best impression you possibly can. That's where you'd use a garden. You'd have a garden set up and displayed really nicely, maybe with seasonal flowers or something like that to give the maximum best impression. But then also the materials chosen in the room. So from the tatami mats, the quality and grade of the tatami mats would be much higher. And the materials chosen for the ceiling boards. Basically every single point of construction is built with the best materials and the finest craftsmanship in this room. And it's really interesting to me because I like this really fine, high status room as well, but I really like the sort of more lived in rooms where you can see just the materials are completely different. It's no guest would ever see that, so it's kind of like hidden away. It's almost like cardboard ceilings and like plywood floors. It's just a completely different thing. And this is, I mean, 10 feet from where I'm sitting right now, I can see it over there. And just that contrast between spaces in the house is a really interesting point about Machiya.
Behind me here is Chionsha, and Chionsha is a Daibe Kyo Machiya, which is representative of the merchant upper class of Machiya that you would be able to see. And this has been handed down generationally, that the owner now is from the same family line that over 100 years ago was responsible for maintaining and running and, well, basically existing and living in this Machiya behind us. And it's cool because in the course of this trip, we've not only seen the smallest, we're going to see the biggest as well. So you can kind of follow the historical trail of the class system that existed and the levels of wealth that people had. Were you not well acquainted with the layout of Chionsha, its many rooms and corridors are easy to get lost in, and the word labyrinthian jumps to mind. Quite gratefully for us then, we had the very gracious host and guide of Nishimura-san, the generational descendant of the family who had originally erected the structure. He took us on a journey through the past history of his family, and as well how the Machiya is finding its place in the modern context.
構造的には大米作りの町屋っていう大きな塀がある町屋で、これは大体住居用の町屋で、大体みんなそういうことでやってます。でちょうど460年前にこの近くの三条通りで創業して、それ以来ずっとつい最近までそこで商いをしてました。その商家の。はい。
That everything could have greater significance than the material item from which it was taken could be no better highlighted than in the room that Nishimura-san would show us next, the tea room, where upon understanding its story, I finally understood how the drinking of dried leaves could be elevated to something entirely different in the minds of those who participated.
だから狭いそれが入り口なんですよ。二次入り口といって、そういう狭いとこから異空間に入ってくるという演出を多分やったんだと。 でまあこういう茶室の中は、まあ、もっとこうイコールの世界で非常に平等な世界でこうコミュニケーションしたという、だからまあそういうこう精神的な意味でのお茶というのがすごく、まあなるべく自分を空にしてここに入ってきて、そのいろんな今までついたらそのなんていうか色眼鏡を全部捨ててここにここで会話するっていうのが基本的な考え方だったんですね。でまあいろんな、分別っていう言葉があるんですけど、それをもう全部こう投げ捨ててここでこうしゃべる。
With our appreciation rooted and understanding the origin of the Machiya, it was time to visit the new, and my expectations were left behind in the dust. I found myself reflecting on the ironic fact that had I not known their history, because I'd never seen usage of space like this before, I might think that it was some new architectural concept on the bleeding edge of innovation. We've done a lot in the course of this documentary, going around to all kinds of locations, talking about the specific cultural details. In the case of this house, we're going in a different direction. It's just pure fanboydom. This is my dream house, and I get to show you, which is very, very exciting for me. All right, so it does follow the traditional design in one sense, and that is that this first building that we're going to enter into is a renovated Machiya. And it has all the characteristics like you would expect. So right away we enter into the ginkan, and we have the cement rock floor. Here we're going to enter into the living room. And here everything has been redone, and everything has been redone to a super high level of quality. Some of it for character has been retained. It's the perfect mix and match that I would like here. So when you come in, obviously you can tell that the floors have been completely redone. But when you look over here to the right, you're going to see that for these sliding doors, they kept that. They've got the personality there. But then let's head into the kitchen. Totally redone. This is my dream kitchen, and I think a lot of people would agree would be theirs as well. You've got this great light through the windows here. You've got all this countertop space. They've taken into account, obviously, the color coding for the rest of the room, that everything goes with everything else. And that minimalist in me likes the really simple lines that you find everywhere. It's beautiful, it's perfect. I could go on for hours, but we don't have that time. Now, when I was younger, in an old home, when I was on Vancouver Island, something that I really enjoyed was in the lower part of our home is we had a stove oven. And when I was looking at the designs of this home, I was happy to discover that's something they have here. So we're about to go out into the middle garden, which separates this front area from the new, totally new detached home in the back. But you can imagine sitting here in this living room with the stove on and being so close to the elements next to you that there would be such an ambience that you would get from that. Whether it was wind, whether it was rain, whether you got to watch the snow come down from here, to be so close to those elements is, again, it's a word I'll use a million times in the course of this, so relaxing, and it's really nice to be close to it. One of my favorite things, one of the million favorite things I'll enjoy here, I'm going to pick a bunch of them. Let's head out to the garden. So I don't know if I'd go so far as to say traditionally, but when I've seen most gardens in a Machiya, it's been that they're for flowers, they're for enjoying some kind of view. But here we have something totally different, which you can see it's self-evident. Here is your own personal vegetable garden. So you come home, you've got this beautiful living room, you put on your wood fire, you come out to your garden for whatever you've grown, collect something, and then you go and cook it. It's like, I was talking before about how a house can be more than simply functional. It can integrate entirely with how you live, and I think that's accomplished really well by having something like a vegetable garden. It's true that I've come to appreciate Machiya in a short period of time, but by no stretch of the imagination am I any kind of an authoritative opinion on their design. Therefore, it's truly lucky that we came in contact with people who are during the course of this documentary. One such was Sano-san, a good friend of Drew's, who is a Niwashi, a man who spends a great deal of time designing gardens specifically for Machiya, and he had some interesting things to say about this garden's design in particular.
今回は少し中庭が、野菜植えている中庭ということにというふうに思ってるんですけど、これはやっぱりよくあることですかね、町屋の庭にして。
いや実は、それは普通やったらいいと思うんです。
ああ、そうですか。
そもそもは、今ですらこうスーパーに行ったらこう野菜が買えたりとかっていう、その買い物に行くっていうことをするんですけども、もともとはやはり生活の何か基盤となる、それこそこう食べ物を育てる場所として、それが外部空間にくっついてる、でそこからこう庭がもともとあったというふうに、思うんで、なんなら僕としては不思議ではないですね。
そうなるほど。これはいわゆるこちらがちょっと本格的な用途っていう。
そうですよね。もう完全なるこう生活の庭ですよね。
With the sun setting in the distance, we had one last Machiya to visit that day. Its name is a Motenashi house. Defined by its warm, welcoming, and spacious interior, it came as no surprise that a word which describes Japanese hospitality was used to describe this very cozy space. I think it goes without saying that this is a very beautiful home, this last Machiya, renovated Machiya that we visited today. From the wide open spacious kitchen that they have to the beautiful bedroom upstairs, which is going to give you an incredible view of Kyoto's skyline and the mountains, to the several gardens they have, even going so far as to have one of the gardens situated next to one of the beautiful bathrooms that they have, that while you bathe you're able to look out of the garden. There's a lot of really cool things here, obviously, but something I thought, as this is the last structure that we were going to tour through today, I'd talk about was actually its name, which is a really cool concept in Japanese, and especially so when you break it down, which this is known as Omotenashi house. And Omotenashi is known basically as Japanese hospitality, but it's when you break it down and you understand what it comes from, then I think you can better understand the nature of Japanese hospitality in its parts coming together. So if you take that word, omotenashi, it's two brought together. I'd understood omote to mean the top of, and ura is the underside. It can also be translated as front, which makes sense. Your surface is your front. And nashi means without. You'd say that to be like nashi, we don't have this. So omotenashi is to mean, brought together, no front. And that's to say you're not fronting, that when you have hospitality, that there's nothing superficial about it. And I think when you feel these welcoming spaces in the machiyas that we visited today, no better word could be described the kind of feeling you get when you visit one. 1950 is a significant year in Japan because it saw the introduction of the Building Standards Act. This act had the effect of preventing any new structures from being erected that did not meet new, strict regulatory codes regarding earthquakes. A good thing to do, but it had a detrimental effect on the Machiya. Their strength in resisting earthquakes comes from unification, and not so much resistance, but coexistence with the forces of nature, taking advantage of the characteristics of wood. It is not measurable, which the Building Act requires. It was then exciting to hear that on this trip we would get to visit a location where the architects there had, through great effort and struggle, overcome the regulations to be able to build 4 new Machiya.
どうにかもう多分何年っていう単位で努力された中でようやく、1棟2棟3棟と多分日本で初めてなんじゃないですかね、赤ご飯で通した建物を建てられて、そこからその特に木組みで土壁に芝建てっていうところにもうぐっとシフトして行かれたのがもうあずさコンテのその一番最初のスタートですね。
すごいですね。いやで
To hear these gentlemen speak of their success in the face of such difficult odds is a truly inspiring story. Then to be able to walk through the newly constructed Machiya and appreciate their craftsmanship firsthand was an incredible experience. I particularly enjoyed seeing which dated elements in the Machiya they had modernized. Obvious things that are really, really nice when you come in here is the amenities that you're going to find. I'm a huge fan of a huge sink. And people are so kind. This huge sink here, and then this is great. I love the view. If you come around, show them Drew, the view of the garden that you have from the kitchen. And something about it being right there next to you cooking feels so personal and feels like your own special space that if you need to escape, you can be right next to it. You don't have to leave, you don't have to walk out, you have that calming influence right next to you. Having these gardens in Machiya is one of the coolest distinctive elements about it, and it's really, really nice. I think you'll see here, one of the things that is distinctive in a Machiya is the sort of earthen walls, and they've retained that element to the design. A change that they would have implemented here is where the stairs are often quite dangerous. They've changed that angle. They've changed that gradient, so you can walk up these stairs and you're not going to die, which is great. All right, talking about how you're getting a blend when you come into these buildings of old and traditional design. Obviously, you want to retain the great elements of what makes it traditional, but there are some that you can do away with, and one that you would usually find is in the old style buildings, the ceilings are very low. I've already hit my head today in one of the old ones, but something that they're incorporating in the new is higher vaulted ceilings. And those are awesome because they let you breathe and it's just relaxing. It's interesting to note that although we've focused on residential Machiyas, there are other alternatives being explored to revitalize them. For example, businesses are moving into them and adapting them for their purposes, some of which are quite ingenious.
Kyososha it used to be an old house at the end of this alley, and you can see on the other side of the alley there's still some of the older houses there. And this is renovated, it was empty for a while, and it was renovated in 2016 and opened as a cohabitation, co-working space. I guess they call it a co-working lab. But the theme, the central theme to the space is living, kurashi, where no one actually does live in the building, but you're trying to infuse a sense of like a casual lifestyle vibe where your workspace shouldn't just be a place that's halogen lights and bright, sort of inhuman,
Alienating.
Exactly, alienating workplace. It's actually, the premise is that if you work in a place that feels like you live there, then you'll get better work done, you'll feel better, it's more casual. The people you work with become more like a family than colleagues. So it's a little bit more personal.
で考え方として働くことあと暮らし生きていくことってやっぱりどっちもなんていうの捨てがたい、どっちもないとやっていけないことなので、それがねこう延長線上でこう混じりはありえながら生きていけたらすごくやっぱバランスもいいし。
I've done my best to try and highlight what is optimistic and hopeful about the current state of Machiya, but that is only one side of the coin. There remains a quite large question mark as to what ultimately will be their fate. To say that they're at a crossroads is not an exaggeration, and for the most part, they are disappearing at a startling rate. Now, with a problem so big, I don't claim to know the solution, but I do know that with most problems, their solution lies in first, knowing that they exist. In the course of making this video, what has stuck out to me is that there is no one right way to participate in preserving the Machiya. It could be that you want to rent one. Maybe you're interested in renovating. Maybe one day you want to buy, or maybe you're like one of these very inspiring entrepreneurs who wants to buy a Machiya and then adapt it to some new purpose. But the point is that whether you're a Japanese national or a foreigner, it doesn't matter. We can all participate, we can all be involved, and be a part of the reason that 50 years from now, this beautiful, integral part of the culture is still here for everyone to enjoy.
So maybe really on topic, but with a slightly heavy heart, I can confirm that Machiya are being sort of decreasing at a rapid rate. Before you lies the site where I was actually consulting with, my lab and I were consulting with the Chonai Kaicho, the leader of the community organization, on how we could preserve Machiya in this specific alley community. And it was only a couple of years ago that I was talking to him here, coming up with strategies to preserve Machiya. And I haven't been here in a while, and I come back and all of them are gone. So whatever terrible faceless high-rise is going to come in here is going to be built on hallowed ground. Unfortunately, we didn't have the strength to resist, it seems.